What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to Force Strategy Gaming. I've got a StarCraft 2 commentary for you today. Today's matchup is going to be between NEX Sickness and Slave Zenith. So yes, we do have Slave here as our blue Zerg player spawning in the 12 o'clock position, and right over here in the 9 o'clock we have got Sickness as the red Protoss player. So Protoss versus Zerg, we are here on Slag Pits, and I'm excited. This is of course going to be a Korean matchup, as you can tell here by the text being typed in their little chatter box. Please, someone who speaks Korean or at least can read it and translate it, let me know what they're talking about in the comments below. Right now we can see Sickness moving out with that probe scout, and actually, wow, we'll be dropping that pylon at the front of his ramp there. A lot of times you will see pylon in the back and then just using the gateway and the Cybernetics core. Now the reason behind that is because this pylon much weaker in terms of the amount of hit points it has than a gateway and a cyber core. But Sickness deciding to start that wall off with that pylon. We can see that scout moving unfortunately into the incorrect position. Now it does look like Zenith will be spotting Sickness sometime very soon. The Overlord is moving directly towards his base. Very small map, at least a relatively small map compared to a lot of the ones on the ladder right now. So with that being the case, would be concerned about some sort of early pressure. Again, point to point, it doesn't really matter. Even spawning cross positions, it's still really small relatively, and yeah, it makes early aggression fairly strong here. But again, these are some Korean players, so really everything goes. I mean, I guess that's the case with anyone, but the truth is that a lot of Korean play is very aggressive, and that's something to certainly keep in mind when watching Korean games. So back over here, Gateway starting to form the rest of that frontal wall off, and yes, it looks like now Slave has fully spotted out Sickness's base, checking out those assimilators. He's going to move to the front, of course, and he wants to see if the building placement is down here, but no, actually, there we go. Drone Scout scouting out the fact that Sickness is starting that wall off at the top of his ramp, as opposed to going for like Pylon Forge down here for an attempted Forge Fast Expand. Back over here, taking a look inside of Slave's base, we can see the extractor is up. Looks like he went extractor first, then pool. That will, of course, allow him to have that 100 Vespian as soon as this pool finishes. He'll be able to get that metabolic boost right away. You can see already just about to hit 100, so there you have it. And looks like he will be pulling guys off just as he hits 100, so stopping right there at 100 Vespian, bringing guys to gather the minerals. He wants those extra minerals to be able to drone up a little bit harder, come out with a few more queens, things I've talked about in the past. Back over here, Overlord for Slave, scouting out that frontal wall, checking, yes, Cybernetics core gateway. Everything looks pretty standard so far over here for Sickness. We'll really need to wait until that Cyber core finishes to see what his next step is, what his plan is from this point forward. Now, I do expect, oh, look at that, Sickness dropping the pylon here at the expansion of Slave. Now, Slave will be forced to engage with those Zerglings so that he can come down with that expansion. Actually, looks like he will be pulling back with the drone, the one that he expected to expand with, so actually holding off on that expansion for some time. And wow, look at that, spending quite a few resources, instead deciding to get that second queen first, and then he will be dropping the expansion after the fact. Was possibly worried about continuous pylon harassment, maybe a constant drop one after the other, that would have continuously delayed. So instead of bothering dealing with that, instead of even having to worry about that at all, he just decided a couple more drones, build a queen, I'll drop the expansion a little later. Looks like about 26 supply is when Slave will be getting that expansion. Back over here for Sickness, pylon outside of the base. This is indicative of an expansion. He will be trying to formulate some sort of a wall, even though he may only be blocking off this area, and there's still this wide open entrance into that expansion. It'll be kind of one less thing for him to worry about, or at least, of course, buy him time. If any sort of push comes, he'll have time to see it attacking these buildings and be able to respond, and the only thing he'll really have to focus on very hard is this wide opening over here. So yes, there you have it. Very cool here. We're going to be seeing a fast expansion from Sickness. Obviously, Slave going for a quick expansion as well, as is pretty much the standard for Zerg players. And look at this drone moving across. Is this going to be a third? I think it might. Slave going for the fast third expansion, realizing that what is he doing? What is he doing? All right, now, obviously that was the intention. The drone's sitting right here, so you can't call me out on that one. He's just deciding to pull it back now, interestingly enough. Now, wow. Okay, so back over here, the natural expansion just about finished right now for Slave. Back inside the main, we can see Metabolic Boost has finished as well. It looks like Sickness, yes, has formulated that wall. He's got the one space there for that Zealot to chill out, and there is that expansion. So Sickness dropping that fast expansion much as expected. We've got a nice transfer here of drones moving down to the natural over there. Robotics just finishing right now here for Sickness. Actually very surprised in his decision to use a robotics for part of this wall off. A lot of times you'll just see extra gateways thrown down here, simply given the fact that robotics being a fairly valuable production building, losing it or having it as part of a wall off can be a little risky. But obviously Sickness feeling pretty confident in his ability to defend that, isn't really too concerned about that at all. And what do we have moving away? Okay, finally Zenith, like a minute later than I expected, coming out with that third expansion. Maybe he wanted to wait to confirm fully that that expansion was actually dropped. I do believe that he got eyes on that, so yes, he did. Looks like he was in fact waiting for confirmation of that expansion, because something that is very dangerous is just because you scout and see what looks to likely be an expansion, if you go ahead and push out for a third as a Zerg player and they cancel it off or just decide not to expand, and maybe Sickness just places these buildings down here as a psych out, and then they go for a one base push while you're on 3 bases, well, that can be very scary. So very wise there of Slave. Clearly he knows what he's doing, so obviously going to give him that credit. But excellent play there, really great job, and yes, waiting until he fully confirmed that expansion to come out with a third. A couple Zerglings moving across the map right now. We've got a Roach Warren coming out, Lair being teched up right now as well. Here's a Forge, and look at this, actually, that full wall off over here as well. So Sickness has got a full wall off using units to block off any open spaces, and the Zerglings over here for Slave will be working at these back destructible debris. Breaking through these ones as well will provide them clear entrance into this natural expansion and the main base as well. So we do want a pylon or some sort of eyes over here for Sickness in order to prevent him from being kind of surprise attacked from that angle, because that could be pretty devastating if he gets 1 or 2 control groups worth of Zerglings. I don't expect that much, but if he gets anywhere between 10 and 20 Zerglings working their way on in here, they're going to do devastating amounts of damage before Sickness even has time to respond. Back over here, Sickness scouting out the third there with that observer inside of the main base for Slave. What do we have going on? Lair just about finished. Carapace level 1 coming on through as well. The Roach Warren, I would expect that Roach speed to get upgraded now that that Lair has popped as well. That's pretty much to be expected. And here we go, Zergling still continuously trying to work on those back rocks. We've got the level 1 upgrade, some more Immortals coming out here. It looks like obviously Sickness is expecting to deal with Roaches, which is pretty smart of him, because that's pretty much a guarantee. Roaches so very strong against the Protoss army. We can see right now the transport coming out right now, the Ventral Stacks being upgraded for Slave, so he will be looking to do some Overlord dropping. A couple Stalkers though, spotting the destruction of these destructible rocks, trying to engage those Zerglings, stopping themselves from getting surrounded. Zerglings trying to surround the Protoss army over here. Oh, wide entrance there. Zealot being able to stop though, just barely. Luckily with those nice force fields was able to prevent too much damage from being dealt. Again, the Zerglings moving back and forth, trying to engage, trying to break this wall if at all possible. 20 more Zerglings coming on through. The transport just about 50% of the way finished right now. We're going to see a Baneling's Nest as well. Baneling dropping so very effective and pretty devastating if the Protoss player is not aware of it. Now we do see Sickness doing a good job of defending this wall. He dealt with a little bit of that Zergling harassment. There's quite a few more Zerglings coming on through, so I actually expect Slave to try to continue this engagement. There's the force field wall, but oh boy, just barely stopping those Zerglings from devastating. Now one big problem right now is the bulk of his forces are trapped right here until his force fields dissipate, so these Zerglings are free to go for some of these buildings, but actually decide not to do that, and with just enough energy for some more force fields, looks like these Zerglings won't be standing much of a chance at all. They will be forced to retreat at the moment. Couple Overlords rallied over here. We've got that Baneling's Nest coming on through. A ton more Zerglings coming as well. There's that Overlord speed. Level 1 melee attack coming through. The Ventral Stacks ready to go. Expect him to wait until that Overlord speed finishes, though. Really difficult. And actually, wow, look at this. Sickness moving into a third in a very vulnerable position, but he will be using cannons to try to help bolster the defenses over there. But this is probably one of his better decisions, either this base or that base. And I'd say this one would be the easiest to defend, given he's got that ramp and can do some sort of wall. Zerglings again trying to engage. We'll be trying to target fire down that robotics, as I mentioned, so very vulnerable, but with some great force fields trapping the Zerglings in place, using the range units to take them out and stopped him from killing off that robotics. Just as I mentioned when I first saw the robotics placement over here, again, very vulnerable position. Those Stalkers are kind of spazzing out over here. Now I've got a couple more Zerglings. We'll be trying to actually break this. Now it isn't a full wall off. They will be running by those cannons, taking a few shots though. Are they going to be able to get in and do any damage? They will probably just be working through the shields, but I don't expect him to do too much damage. Unfortunately for Slave, there were not a lot of probes here when he initially arrived, and now that a few more probes have arrived, there's some Zealots along with them, and a bunch of Stalkers and Sentries as well. So these Zerglings are pretty much finished right now. Overlord speed is up. It looks like we will be seeing Slave getting ready to move into his drop sometime soon. Now the centrifugal hooks are coming on through, so he could very well wait for that. We also have Blink Stalkers coming out right now for Sickness. So we're going to be seeing some Baneling dropping. Oh, here we go. Lots of Speedlings. No Banelings in the mix. This is nothing but Speedlings, but he'll be dropping a ton of them. There'll be some Banelings getting ready to drop over here as well, but here come the Speedlings inside of the main of Sickness, and Sickness, the entire army is halfway across the map right now, so he is not prepared for this. The Speedlings target firing down the Nexus. Also, we'll be trying to get that Twilight Council. If we can get that before the Blink finishes, that is really solid. I'm not sure he's going to be able to get it in time. Going to be very, very close. That Blink research very close to finish. Will he target fire down in time? Some nice force fields trying to prevent that, and there we go. Beautiful. Allowed that Blink to finish. However, it is very low. He lost the Nexus there as well. Here comes another drop back over here. A few Banelings, ton of Speedlings. Very intense play here by Slave. Finally taking care of the Zerglings inside the main, and all of a sudden, Zerglings and Banelings inside of his third. And obviously his army is not in position to deal with this. It does not look like Sickness will be able to defend this. I think he's about to lose the Nexus, losing these cannons here as well. We lose the top pylons. What are those probes doing? Wrong direction, buddy. Time to head back home. Those probes do not want to be anywhere near here, because look at this. Sickness losing his third, losing his main Nexus as well, almost losing that Twilight Council, lost a couple cannons. This is really rough right now. Sickness is in a very tough spot. Finally, the bulk of his army has moved in to try to deal with this, but you know what? The damage is done. Nexus gone here at the third, Nexus gone at the main. The only mining that Sickness has right now is from this natural expansion, trying to come up with one here at this third position as well. But wow, very, very nice play there by Slave. Pretty intense, I would have to say. Do we have any sort of a transition? We can see a lot of roaches coming into play. We've got the Carapace level 2 upgrade coming on through as well. The roach speed is of course in right now, and yeah, that roach transition could prove to be very effective, especially since all Sickness has seen thus far in the game are those Speedlings and Banelings, so he may not be prepared for a heavy roach push. We do see Psionic Storm coming on through right now, sitting on just the one High Templar. Got another one just warped in there as well, but looks like there will be another push. This time, lots of Banelings, lots and lots of Banelings, few roaches. How does a Baneling take up the same amount of space as a roach? Can someone explain that to me? As far as I'm concerned, a roach is a lot larger, but whatever. I don't know, maybe there's not enough carrying capacity in these overlords, but here we go. Roach Baneling drop will be moving right into the main again, and this is a scary, scary situation right now. Sickness has not been able to retaliate at all, and here we go. This time we'll be target firing these production buildings. If he can drop some gateways, I expect him to drop the Twilight Council, although that won't do him much good other than delaying a possible charge upgrade. Here comes some more roaches being dropped. Actually, get target fire down and not doing anything. Trying to drop a few Banelings, but look at this. With those roaches, able to drop those gateways, the Twilight Council as well. If he could have gotten that Cybernex core, that would have been huge. We'll be trying to load up a few of these roaches and head out. Now, got to be careful because those Stalkers do have Blink. There we go. Finally utilizing that. The Overlords do make it away with most of those roaches, and this has been nuts. Just constant aggression here from Slave. Absolutely phenomenal work, and Sickness has been on his back foot this entire game. Let's take a look now at the unit loss tab. Now, all right. Lots of resources lost for Slave. He has obviously thrown away a ton of Banelings and Speedlings. I think he threw away a few roaches in here too, losing a few from that drop. But even though he has lost so many resources, we have got to keep in mind he has killed off 2 Nexuses, a few gateways as well. He severely hurt the economy of Sickness. I mean, Sickness is in a tough spot. There's another drop going on. This time, just the 4 roaches. We'll be trying to target fire down that Cybernex core. Don't expect them to get anywhere at all. Can you please use Blink? There we go. Very nice, Sickness. About damn time. Wow. But let's take a look at the income tab. There's just a whole heck of a lot going on. So yes, we can see Slave in obviously a dominant position. He has not been hindered at all. He really hasn't taken any damage. He's just been on the constant aggressive. He's got a few Overlords ready to continue to drop. Right now, Sickness's main is no longer his main. It looks like he will be repositioning. Look at those side storms, though. There was another Zergling drop. Looks like that got taken care of pretty quickly. Something else I do want to take a look at, though, are the workers killed, and that's one of the biggest things right now. 29 workers killed for Slave Zenith. So Slave really, really hurting the economy, besides even just killing off those Nexuses, killing off a ton of those probes as well. And this is one big problem right now for Sickness, because we are seeing Slave macro up incredibly hard. We've got that Greater Spire coming on through, Burrow Research, level 2 melee attacks, also the Tunneling Claws for those roaches. Now, once this comes into play and we start to see Brewlords, it's going to be a scary situation. Now, Okay, Cygnus has done an okay job of defending himself. Well, okay, let's don't shoot me there, but he's obviously taken a lot of damage, but he's still hanging on. And what we really need to see him do, something he hasn't done yet, is push out. He needs to attack. He needs to be aggressive. He needs to do some damage at some point. Something as simple as a few High Templar in a Warp Prism dropping and just storming the crap out of the resource line, killing off a ton of drones, that's going to be effective, and that's the kind of thing that he needs to do to try to get back in the game. But my major concern right now is that he is letting Slave just macro up, and that's really, really scary. We are 2-0 right now in terms of upgrades for those range units, and 2-1 for the melee units. Back over here, Protoss Army is actually sitting at 1-2 as well, so Cygnus has maintained his macro and been able to still get those upgrades, even though he's been dealing with all this pressure. And it probably looks like expecting, obviously, that transition into Broodlords. We are seeing right now some Void Rays coming into play. Void Rays very strong against the Broodlords. A major concern would be fungal growths and hydras, and we're actually seeing a lot of infestors right here, so those fungal growths will certainly come into play. Cygnus starting to test the waters right now, trying to move out and try to get any kind of small victory he can, killing off overlords, a few straggling zerglings, pretty much whatever you can. Those small victories will help. Great job over here by Slave, dropping that creep, allowing him to see if any push does happen to move towards the direction of his main and natural expansion. And here comes the big push. Lots and lots of units ready to get dropped. There's a ton of banelings. Roaches move forward as well. We do know those infestors to be a little bit closer to drop those fungal growths, and there we go. Oh, just barely avoiding that storm right there. Now what we need to see is those infestors need to drop the fungal growth. Obviously they're trying to stay away from those feedbacks as well, but if he can drop the fungal growth, the banelings will just do tremendous amounts of damage, because you can see right there Cygnus just constantly trying to strafe and stay away from those overlords, prepare to drop those banelings. The fungal growth obviously helped used to try to counteract that. And we've got constant Void Ray production right now, also starting to get those air upgrades. There's the Warp Prism, so hopefully we do see some of that harassment, as I mentioned. Now right now it looks like Slave's in a prime position to snipe out this expansion if he can sit forward as well with these infestors for the fungal growths. And here we go, trying to move forward to deal with those roaches. We're going to see the fungal growths come down too, but there are the feedbacks. My gosh, feedbacks killing every infestor but the one. Lots of storms going down as well, and that was exactly what Cygnus needed to try to help get himself back in the game. The banelings trying to catch up to those units. Some nice force field wall. Roaches continuing to pursue as well, but that was nuts. Very, very nice feedbacks there from Cygnus. He killed off, I think, 5 infestors. I believe there were 6 total. Either way, he killed off every infestor but that one, so that's a little bit scary right now for Slave. Those were some pretty heavy losses. Income-wise, let's take a look at how things are. It looks like Slave is still ahead right now, but Cygnus starting to work on kind of that Protoss death ball. There's lots of Void Rays, and uh-oh, not looking good for the Roaches. Please burrow, head back. They will still be taking damage, though. The Observer, of course, spotting them. We've got a lot of Broodlords in play, but remember, as mentioned, those Void Rays very strong against the Blink Stalkers if they can get underneath as well, because we do not have a lot of infestors. Still just the one. He hasn't made... Oh, there we go. 3 more infestors coming out. Neuroparasite coming through as well. That would primarily be used against those Void Rays, but look at those big storms going down on all those Roaches and the Overlords as well. Overlords trying to drop. We've got some Hydras pushing forward. Some nice force field wall, though. Very small choke points here on this map, and that's a little scary when it comes to dealing with force fields. Hydras trying to move forward and engage those Void Rays and doing a good job managing to get within range, and those Void Rays drop so quickly to those Hydras. Overlords all got taken out, but luckily looks like Slave is sitting on quite a few extras. Now realize that push did happen to work in the fact that Cygnus did lose this Nexus here, so Slave was able to snipe that down while Cygnus was distracted during those engagements, during those fights. So clearly good job by Slave. That's been his MO pretty much this entire game, is to kill off expansion. We've got Cygnus trying to rebuild everything. He has finally got all the Nexi up on his half of the map. Is that correct? Should I say Nexuses? I believe Nexi is proper. A ton of Broodlords though, and these Broodlords going to be so strong as long as they can stay out of the range of those Void Rays. We've got quite a few Void Rays right now, sitting on 8 Void Rays to those 8 Broodlords and trying to move forward. There we go, catching some of those burrowed Roaches. Infestors trying to keep that bulk of the ground army at bay. Buying himself some time. He's got a few more infestors in play right now. What's the total? Sitting on 3 infestors. As long as those have enough energy, that should be enough fungal growths and possibly a neuroparasite or 2 to help him out here. But this is kind of looking a little scary now. Again, really, we haven't seen Cygnus push out and be aggressive at all, but he's been defending himself. Again, he's still in this game. He's still alive. It's not over. Pushing forward with his Observer, killing off those creep tumors. Certainly a good idea. And here we go. We are seeing Slave push forward and get ready to engage with those Broodlords, as mentioned before, with these very small choke points on this map. it makes force fields so devastating for his Zerg player. So Slave really wants to try to engage Sickness in one of these large open areas. There we go, get off a couple fun growths. There are some big storms as well. Zerglings trying to move on in. We are seeing the Banelings getting ready to drop. It looks like they will be waiting until they get over those Blink Stalkers. And again, the Zerg army cannot pursue against those force fields until they dissipate. Here we go, lots of Baneling drops going on, and Sickness losing pretty much all those Stalkers. Huge storms going down, and there's not a lot of anti-air left. We are going to see these Broodlords forced to push back. The Roaches and Broodlings trying to engage those, and this is very bad right now. Slave losing all of those Broodlords. See you later. Void Rays just dominating without the anti-air, without those Hydras, and without that fungal growth. These Void Rays are going to tear through everything that Slave has right now. We've got 14 Corruptors coming out. Will it be too late right now? Dropping that Infestation Pit. Watch how quickly. See you later. No more Infestors. We've got one that managed to build right before that Infestation Pit dropped, but this is pretty scary right now. We have got to see those Corruptors come into play. What is the response going to be as well from Sickness? He needs a follow-up. He can't just continue to mass up these Void Rays. So Corruptors move forward to engage. They will be target firing down these and trying to drop them as quickly as possible. He wants to group up all of them. Please don't engage one or two at a time. That's a bad idea indeed. Back over here, a couple of Banelings trying to roll into this expansion. Do get denied though by that storm as well as those cannons. There we go. Finally enough Corruptors to push back these Void Rays. So we do need to see a transition. Watch out, War Prism filled with High Templar. Doesn't get targeted though. Corruptors too distracted, trying to kill off these Void Rays. There are a couple storms trying to soften up the Corruptors. These storms are not the greatest against Corruptors, but certainly every little bit of damage helps. Sickness will be losing these Void Rays though, not enough damage, so very nice. Slave managing to barely defend himself, churning out those Corruptors just in the nick of time, killing off the rest of those Void Rays. He certainly, you know, eye for an eye, if you will, after losing all of his Broodlords to that small amount of Void Rays. He was probably pretty peeved, I would imagine. Anyways, yes, are we going to see another Infestation Pit get dropped? Hopefully. I'm not sure. Maybe a little concerned about still playing with Infestor, just given the fact that, you know, Sickness has been so spot on with those feedbacks. That's certainly cause for concern. At least he's might be a little bit leery. You know, we can see over here, Slave will be moving, at least trying to move into this high yield expansion. Already got the creep down, so he is staged and ready to go, as if creep being down makes a difference for dropping an expansion. Back over here, lots more. We are seeing a few more Void Rays that were made. A couple Blink Stalkers and an Archon there as well. Let's take a look at the unit composition. 14 High Templar. Where are those bad boys? I might have missed something, but there are 14 High Templar chilling out somewhere. A bunch of them sitting over here. So yes, High Templar, Void Ray, couple Stalkers in the mix, but mainly High Templar. And the other side, we've got tons of Banelings, just a few Roaches, lots of Zerglings here as well, and some Corruptors in the mix. Would like to see a few more Broodlords, if at all possible. That will help tremendously in terms of keeping those High Templar and trying to keep those Stalkers at bay. That's really pretty essential now. Ton of Zerglings will be loaded up here, and Slave will be trying to drop it. Blink Stalkers catching them in transit there. Having that Zelnaga tower with that probe allowed him to see that that drop was coming. Sniped down one Overlord that was filled with Zerglings. Pretty big loss there, unfortunately, for Slave. Back over here, looks like there was a Baneling drop, forcing all of the workers off the line here. I'm pretty sure he must have gotten a couple kills with that as well. Of course, a million apologies for missing that drop. Roach is taking over control of that Zelnaga tower. They say, probe, get the F out of here, buddy. And then finally, now that he has control of that tower, he will be moving across with these Overlords. So it looks like, yes, Slave has managed to grab this high yield expansion, was still trying to consistently keep up the harassment over here. I don't think that Overlord will be doing any more dropping until he gets maybe filled up with a few more guys. Now these Zerglings are making it cross that barrier. And yeah, these Zerglings are going to start to go to work. Now, something I'm interested to see is that, you know, we haven't seen Slave push across this side because Sickness is not prepared to defend against any push in this direction. Probably just concerned about a counterattack, though. But here come the Zerglings. Where are they going to drop? There we go, dropping right in these production buildings. I think he will probably be trying to get rid of those very obnoxious Stargates because they have proved to be quite difficult for him, quite a pain in the neck. Picking up all of those Zerglings, though, after seeing those Zealots warped in, decided he doesn't really want to deal with it. And then here we go, back over here, Zealot Bomb inside of the expansion here of Slave. We are also seeing that High Templar very close to enough energy for a Side Storm. Corruptors move forward. That's not going to help. Zerglings move on down. There you go. Take care of that. Again, the Zerglings getting ready to be dropped over here. We got Dark Shrine attempt to be dropped. Those cannons, though, taking care of this Overlord very quickly, and a Mothership comes into play, and for some reason my computer just crapped out for about a millisecond, so that's frustrating. And here we go. Oh, the Zealots taking out the expansion. Too bad for Slave. Losing that Expo certainly doesn't help him in the least. Now we do have the Mothership in play. So let's see how much of a difference this makes. We probably will be seeing a push right now from Sickness, given that the mothership is here and in play. Does want to take advantage of that. Now, we do have quite a few Corruptors. That would drop it pretty quickly, but we've got some carriers here in play as well. So Sickness pushing across the map right now. Lots of Void Rays, some carriers, a small ground force, but a very strong air force, and so many High Templar plus that mothership. This is very scary right now. Slave hasn't managed to fully take Sickness out of this game yet, and right now he is going to deal with a giant death ball. We will be seeing some Archons in the mix as well. The splash damage from that Archon, so devastating. Some Dark Templar will be in sometime soon as well. We can see that Dark Shrine just about finished right now. So I don't know, Slave. Do you have enough to deal with this right now? Let's take a look. Does he have many Infestors? Does have 3 Infestors, 8 Corruptors, a ton of Zerglings. That looks like a pretty measly force. And just calling the GG, that is incredibly anticlimactic. I was really hoping for a huge engagement. What happened, though, was having that Xel'Naga Tower. Slave saw this, and he realized, no way in hell. See you later. Sickness opened up this game with a 3-gate Robo into Expand. Slave went 1 base into Expand, and then upon scouting out the expansion for Sickness, decided to move into his 3rd. Slave attempted to overwhelm Sickness early on by massing up Speedlings and just throwing him at the front wall, plus the units that Sickness had, but with some very nicely placed force fields, Sickness was able to properly defend himself against this early on push. Realizing throwing units at the wall wasn't working, Slave decided to go for the dropping route, dropping right inside of the main, tons of Speedlings. With this, he was absolutely able to devastate Sickness's main. We're going to see him actually just barely, he almost stopped that Blink Research from finishing, but some nice force fields prevented that, but unfortunately for Sickness, losing the Nexus in his main. Just after taking out Sickness's main Nexus, he then dropped into the 3rd expansion of Sickness and was able to take out that Nexus as well. While Sickness was still in the middle of the map, we saw a 3rd drop from Slave, and with this Roach drop, he was able to snipe down these 2 gateways and that Twilight Council. So constantly, the first 15 minutes of the game were nothing but Sickness drops and continuous Zerg aggression. Refusing to give up though, Sickness just continuously defended and kept rebuilding his base, even though Slave kept up with that drop harass. Around 21 minutes, Slave had a tremendous opportunity to overwhelm and take out Sickness's army. However, because of this force field wall and the Infestors not being close enough to fungal growth, Sickness was able to prevent that from happening. Sickness just kept defending himself and trying to buy himself time. He realized that if he could just stay in the game and work his way up to that late game Protoss army composition, that he could still win. Finally, with some Void Rays and a lot of High Templar, Sickness felt comfortable to engage. We're going to see some nice feedbacks and storms here as well. And then once he's able to mop up the ground army, this allowed his Void Rays to push forward and engage those Broodlords. So we're going to see him take care of the ground army right now with some storms. Those cannons helped as well. And then with all of the anti-air gone, Sickness was able to target fire down those Broodlords. This was a big turning point in the game. Lots of credit this game to both players, but especially Sickness for being so resilient, keeping himself in the game, eventually teching up with this huge death ball, carriers, Void Rays, lots of High Templar, and the mothership. Upon spotting this army, Slave just left the game. Alright guys, so thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you have enjoyed this game. Pretty intense, I'd have to say. As always guys, if you like the content, please subscribe. Thanks again, keep watching, and keep owning.